Hey, sweet ones. Thanks for joining me for Toltec Path of Transformation, Stalking Yourself Special Edition Thursday class. So we have Carrie, Janet, Janine, and Lisa. Welcome. I'm glad you could join me tonight. And let me just make sure the chat bar is open. It is. Okay. So at any time today, as we're sharing, feel free to chat and ask questions or share your insights. And yeah, that's all. Still a little giddy from my travels. It took me 24 hours to get home. My flight was delayed. I got stranded in Dallas because it was snowing, and so all the flights were canceled. We ended up taking Amtrak to get home. So I started towards the airport at 9:30 on Sunday night and got home Monday at 9:30. So it was quite an epic day. I'm still kind of catching up with myself. So let's start with a little grounding, and then I want to share some of the teachings and wisdom that I found in Peru and Colombia during my journeys. So go ahead and close your eyes. And taking a breath into your belly, just letting yourself settle. I'm so happy to be with each of you tonight and to feel your heart. And so let's imagine that we're standing in a circle, all these beings that are part of Toltec Path, that are learning how to stalk ourselves. And just give thanks for this tribe of warriors of the heart that are walking with you. And also honoring yourself for your willingness to show up, for your warrior heart, for learning to cultivate patience and perseverance. And for learning to keep your heart wide open. Beautiful. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and be present here. Good. So I wanted to take some time to share with you around some of the insights and teachings and experiences that happened while I was in Peru and Colombia over the last 3 weeks. And I just have to say first how delighted I am to be connected with each of you again. I missed our circles and our talks, and I also knew that you were in really, really fabulous hands. So I hope that you enjoyed your time with Miguel and with Diana, and that the videos, the extra kind of bonus videos, are feeding you as well around harnessing intent. So So one of the main things that struck me again when I was in Peru was how deeply people are connected to the earth. That there's a beautiful synergy that happens between humans and nature that I just saw evidenced over and over again. And we were really blessed to travel with a man named Don Lorenzo and with my dear friend Jorge, who are both shamans in their own right, and are also very different, and that was fun to experience as well. So Lorenzo was the shaman. He was raised in the mountain about 15,000 feet and was passed the tradition, the shamanic tradition down from his stepfather. And I'll talk more about the Quiros in a moment. And Jorge was, his father is Quechua, his mother's Aymara, so he comes from two different tribes, speaks both languages and Spanish and English, and was raised in the Titicaca area of Peru, way high up as well, and is also just this amazing being that is a bridge between the East and the West. He has a travel company, he has many different hotels throughout Peru, and they're both very humble. But it's kind of funny, sometimes I giggle because people look at Lorenzo and think, oh my gosh, there's this huge, powerful shaman, and sometimes because he doesn't dress, in the shaman, he doesn't have his shaman hat, he doesn't have his poncho. But the man, you start talking to him and you just realize what incredible wisdom that he has around so many different aspects of the world. So that was really a joy. And Quiros live way high up, as I said before, and because they lived so high up, they weren't influenced by the Spanish. So the Spanish invaded Peru and took over the Incan Empire. That's the right word. The Quiros weren't affected because they lived way too high that the Spanish didn't go. And so there's been this ongoing tradition of Quiro shamans for thousands of years. And they're just now starting to come down from the mountain and to teach. And Lorenzo, in fact, lives in Cusco, which is a big town in Peru, with his family. But he was traditionally trained. And Quiros is they don't have very much at all. So there are no stores, there are no resources really. They have the land, they have the seeds that they plant, they have llamas, their animals, and they have each other. And the way that the shamans do the healings is that they get rocks from different areas that they visit. So they find stones that they're really connected to, that they believe are connected to the apus, which are the spirits of the mountain. And it's those rocks that they use within a cloth that they weave, and the cloth is the mesa. And they wrap the rocks in this mesa and put a string around it. And then that's what they use in all of their healings. And what they do is they ask the Mother Earth, they ask the power of those rocks to help cleanse the humans. And so much around the tradition in both the Quechua and the Aymara and the Incan tradition was around helping to release what they call hucha, or heavy energy. And so they clear the heavy energy by taking these bundles and passing them over people and asking and praying. There's so much praying involved in their work, and praying to ask that the heavy energy is released from the human and that they can then put it into the earth. And so that's part of the big ceremony, is around the cleansing. And then also the offering. The offerings are a big piece as well, what are called the despachos. So I just realized my computer needs battery. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in so I don't lose you. I have 8 minutes remaining. But let me go ahead and plug the computer in. And what I'd like to do while I'm going and grabbing that plug and doing my thing is to just take a moment. You can either think inside or you can write down of feeling into your own being and using this idea that the Incans have, that the shamans there have, of heavy energy versus refined energy. And just notice in your being where are the places that you're holding or you have heavy energy. So without making it good or bad or right or wrong, it's just where's the heavy energy in your being, and where's the energy or the experiences you've had where you've connected to what they call refined energy. Okay, so just explore that, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Good, so thanks for your patience. So I really love the way of working with heavy energy versus refined energy. And that really what we're here to do is to clean and clear the heavy energy so that we can make space for the more refined energy to come in. And that there isn't this heavy energy is bad, refined energy is good. It's just we recognize the heavy energy can hold us back. And sometimes the heavy energy is beneficial, it's helpful, it helps us to learn, to grow. And there's times when we also just recognize the heavy energy is no longer serving us and that we can use it. It's a beautiful recycling that we can give it back to the earth and that the earth can benefit from that energy. That heavy energy that doesn't serve us is still beneficial as compost to the mama. And that's something else that's very prevalent within the Peruvians and the Incan tradition, is that there's this incredible reverence for the earth. So before people drink water, they'll often pour a little bit on the earth to bless and honor the Pachamama, which is the Mother Earth, and to give back to her as well. And so this is something that we can bring into our own lives, is the idea of heavy energy versus refined energy and how we can give that energy back to the mama, as well as just honoring the mother. Pouring water, doing ceremony and ritual, reconnecting in a conscious way. And when we do that, the earth feeds us back. The earth gives back to us as we give to the earth. So the other ceremonies that we did there were called despachos. And the despacho is another way to give back to the mother. So before there's any sort of transition, so if you're moving into a new house or just everything, anything where there's a transition, if there's rain, if you want to honor something, if you want to ask for something, you create a despacho. And the despacho is usually a piece of paper is the foundation. It used to be a cloth, but usually now the shamans use a piece of paper. And then they create these beautiful offerings that are made out of confetti, candy, corn, so different, usually brightly colored offerings that go into the center. And then the whole thing is wrapped up and either buried or burned. And the whole time that the despacho is being created, it's being prayed over and prayed. And the blessings are being put in with every item that's added to the despacho. And it's a way to ask for support and also just to feed the mother. So the fire eats the offering and the blessings, or the earth eats the offering and the blessings. And that then creates that continuing cycle of the earth being fed and the earth then feeding us. In the Incan tradition, there's apus, which are the spirits of the mountains. And there's a belief that every mountain has a spirit, and that the mountains, the spirits of the mountains all over the world talk to each other from the clouds. It's the clouds that travel, and that's how the mountains communicate with each other, which I love. And so whenever we want to go deeper, there's a way that we can connect with the Apu of whatever mountain is nearby. And so you don't have to go to Peru to connect with the Apus. You can just connect with the mountains that are nearest to us wherever we are. And like in North America, there's a huge mountain that has a big Apu, and a lot of people know about, which is Mount Shasta. And the Peruvians talk about Mount Shasta a lot as a very powerful Apu of the north. And so we can always connect to that Apu and ask for support and guidance and insights from the spirit of the mountain, which are these incredible guardians. So before I share a couple more stories, I just want to acknowledge someone who is on our call tonight, which is Janine, who is just such an amazing woman. So I really want to honor you, Janine. She has been part of Warrior Goddess and Stalking for the last year plus. And a year ago, there is no way she could have come on this journey. So she could not walk. She's been in a lot of work with her body. And I just have to tell you, Janine, how incredible it was to be on the journey and have you be part of it, and to have you bring so much light and life, and to really see a situation where it looked like it was completely impossible, but you made it happen. So just cheers and kudos and lots of love to you. You guys have an amazing warrior within the ranks of our Toltec Path circle in Janine. So please send her your blessings and love. And Yahoo for her incredible strength, and that she just kept up with everybody. It was beautiful. So other stories of Peru is that another thing that Jorge taught us is the importance of our relationship with the sun. That we're children of the earth, but we're also children of the sun, of the Father's Son. And that every day when we get up to create the connection, we greet the sun. And the way that you greet the sun is that you stand with your arms open and face the sunlight and really feel the sun. And as Jorge says, feel your inner sun. So connect to the outer sun, but feel your inner sun. And that as you're standing and connecting with the inner sun, you take your right hand and bring it to your heart to honor that connection. And then you bring your left hand and bring it to your solar plexus. And what Jorge taught us is that when you're bringing your left hand to your solar plexus, this is with love and then without fear. So we're closing the door of fear in the solar plexus as we open the door of love with our heart. It's a really sweet way to start the day, and to remember that we're connected to a much larger force, which is the sun. So Janine, thank you, Heather Ash. It was an amazing and wonderful experience at so many levels. Kept everyone in my thoughts and prayers with every step. Yeah, yay. Yeah, both the Stalking group and the Warrior Goddess group, there are a lot of prayers being sent your way as we went through our journey and visited all these really magical places. So you guys got well blessed in the Peruvian way. So this place of honoring the sun, the earth, the wind. That was something else that I really learned from Lorenzo, is that we did a lot of different ceremonies called karpais, which were blessings from different aspects of the universe. And so there was the karpai, there was a water karpai, there was an apu karpai, there was an earth karpai, there's a star karpai. So there's all these different ceremonies where the shaman is connecting us to that particular element, and that we're learning how to bring that element within us as a guide and a teacher, really. And there's literally our energy bodies being opened to connect with those different energies. So it just reminded me that we have so much power as humans, especially when we connect with nature, when we open up and make friends with the wind, when we make friends with the mountains, when we ask the earth to be our guide. And that as stalkers, as we travel our road, that we don't want to limit ourselves by just thinking I have to do everything myself. I'm the only one on this journey. But to recognize we're part of a much larger system, and that much larger system of the universe and the forces around us are all wanting to support us in waking up, in being more present, in listening. And so when we call in our allies, and that we don't have to go to Peru to reconnect to the wisdom and the guidance of nature. All we have to do is step outside. All we have to do is to say hello to the earth beneath us, to the trees, to the wind, to the birds, to the stars. And remember, we're part of a much larger force of life moving through everything. We talked yesterday a little bit about intent and how intent moves through everything. There's a larger force, a larger life force, intent, that moves through everything. And as humans, we've tended to disconnect ourselves and think that we're just separate beings. But when we open back up and say, okay, how does life, or not how does, just that life is moving through everything, that the wind is talking to us and has life, has consciousness, that the mountains have consciousness, have life, then we're entering into a really large realm of support and guidance. And that is very real. So here's a great story from Colombia. And Carrie, I can totally see you honoring the sun out in Corpus Christi. It's a really fabulous way to start the day. So as the sun rises, to bring it in, or any time in the day. So when I was in Colombia, I heard about this man named Vicente, who was the gardener of two of the folks that were hosting me. And their house was under construction. They noticed that when they would go to their house, there would be a little glass of rum or wine and a cigar in the corner. And they kind of noticed it for a couple times. And then they asked Vicente, they're like, hey, Vicente, what is that? And he said, oh, well, there's a gnome that lives on the property. I call him Gabriel. And so that's my offering to Gabriel. And they were like, okay. So as the house started getting more and more under construction, Vicente came to them and said, the gnome has left. He's no longer here. So when I heard this story, I thought to myself, you know what? I bet the gnome comes back after the fire walk. Because how could you resist a good fire walk? And so after the fire walk, and I love this too, just what an incredible human. So here's something else that's a good teaching I didn't think about till just now. So in Peru, we're with these just beautiful shamans that have been trained, that are deeply connected to the earth. And then I meet Vicente, and it just shows you that and we want to be aware of the ways that we say, oh, powerful shaman versus gardener. Because Vicente was one of just the most peaceful, loving, happy, joyful people I've ever met. And he's been a gardener for 27 years for the same family. And he's an angel. He really is. I mean, just the heart of this man. And so to keep breaking our assumptions and our expectations of what is what in the world. So Vicente had said that Gabriel had left. And after he came to the fire walk, he participated in the fire walk. And it was so funny because he was supposed to help me tend the fire, and he got so caught up in the teaching part of it and sharing with his group that he did not help. It was so cute, and it was totally fine, but I was just giggling about it and just so happy that he just jumped in 100%. And he walked, and he asked me to walk with him. And at the end of the fire walk, we had this huge bed of coals left over, and I raked them into a heart. And the next morning, I went back to the fire site, and all the coals had been spread around the area that we had done the walk. And it was actually the foundation of a building. They're going to build a yoga studio, and we actually did the fire walk on the ground that they had cleared to build the studio. So in the morning when I went back, I'm like, wow, did the wind do this? Did the wind so carefully move these coals? And it turned out that Vicente had asked Maria Victoria if he could do that. And she said, well, don't you want to put them in the compost pile? And he said, no, I want to spread them out. And so he had carefully spread the coals out evenly so that all of the land was being blessed by the coals. So beautiful. And there were a group of women that we did a warrior goddess workshop the next day. So the fire walk was Saturday night, and the women's workshop was on Sunday. We're sitting out under this huge eucalyptus tree teaching. There's fuzz floating around. Okay. And Patricia, who was one of the hosts as well for the workshop, started spontaneously making little houses out of wood as I'm teaching. And she said to me later, she said, I used to do this as a kid all the time, and I haven't done it since I was little. And that she spontaneously felt called to start building this little bitty house out of little twigs. And then she took photos of the house later, and she took a bunch of photos of it after the workshop was done. And then she came and showed me the photos, and she said, you will not believe this. And there's a photo, and you see the little house, and then there's this green light up here. And it's just this round, and it's bright green. And then with each subsequent photo, the light keeps moving until the light's within the house, and that's where it stays. So she was like, oh my gosh, Gabriel, the gnome is back. And she showed it to Vicente, and Vicente was like, yep, that's it. So that was such an amazing confirmation that when we nourish the land, when we listen to our own impulses, and it is like going back to that child self that just is open, that we connect with the natural world in a totally different way, and that there's a lot of invisible forces and allies that are around us that are wanting to help, but that we're not listening. So when we slow down, and this is such a big piece around being on the path of a stalker, is that we open to guidance in all the different areas, and that we slow down enough to listen to nature, to find that wisdom, to find the guides and the allies, and to know that they're real, they're around. They don't often interact with humans because we're not present enough. But when we show up and we honor the land, when we do ceremony and ritual to give back, whether that's pouring a little drop of water on the earth or building little altars wherever we go, or doing any kind of offering, we're mending the fabric of humans and the earth and the elementals. And we're coming back into our relationship with life. And it's part of our stalking practice as well, because we're connecting our intent with the larger intent of life and asking it to guide us, to support us, to direct us as we move forward in our life. So there's a story from Colombia about the devas that are around, the elementals. And it reminds me of another story just to show the power of our love. Love is just such a huge force. A couple stories. One is that in, I don't know what organization it was, but they decided to run a test to see if humans had the capacity to change random generating number computers. So they had computers that all the computer did was randomly generate numbers. And what they wanted to see is, could humans affect the numbers? So they did a lot of different studies, brought a lot of different groups in. And at the end of the study, where they did thousands and thousands of people, they found that without a doubt, there was a group of humans that could affect the numbers and make them less random, just using their mind. And the only instructions they were given is sit in front of this computer and can you make the numbers less random? That was the only guidance they were given. So out of all these different groups that they had come, one group could absolutely change the outcome, and was statistically, it was statistically replicable that there was one group that could make the numbers less random. And who that group was people that were in love. And if you think about it, when you first fall in love, there's a sense of everything's possible, and your heart is just blasted open. So when I first heard this, about this experiment, I thought, right, how do we fall in love all the time? How do we fall in love over and over again? Because that's the most powerful force there is. And that, as stalkers, is something that we want to create more and more of, is to fall in love with everything, all of our experiences, the things we love, the things we don't love, that we begin to cultivate an inner love that's not based on the outer, that's not based on what's happening to us or from the spark of one person in our life, but that's really coming from us cultivating love for everything. So the second story also illustrates what's possible from that connection of love. And I also believe that's what my friend Patricia was doing when she built the little house, was from love and from her instincts, creating the space that attracted another being to partake in magic. So this next story is from Findhorn, and Findhorn's a big retreat center and garden center up in Scotland that's very, very well known. And one of the things that the Findhorn is well known for is how connected the people are to the land and to the spirit of the land. And so there was a woman who had fallen in love with Findhorn and was really excited about it and wanted to work there and wanted to donate. And her husband, who was a scientist, was very standoffish about it and didn't like it at all. And he was a rose expert. So he was like one of the premier rose experts in Scotland. And so some of the people that were at Findhorn came up to him and said, okay, give us a list of roses. What are the best roses that we could bring to this area? For this area, what are the best roses? So he gave them a list of roses, and they went and got those roses and planted them. And a year or so later, he came back with his wife, and he saw the roses and how well all the roses were doing, and he burst into tears. And they were like, what? And he said, I was so upset and thought you guys were just not the real thing. I just thought you guys were all crazy. And so the list of roses I gave you were roses that do not grow in this area, that do not do well, that do not grow in this area. And yet look at them, they're all beautiful. Because the people of Findhorn are so connected to the land and have so much love, when they planted these roses, even though these roses do not do well in this area, they all thrived. Because the nutrient of the love, I believe, the nutrient of the love that they were getting was the most powerful thing. And so this man then converted and totally loved Finhorn as well, because they saw the power that they had, which was the power of love. They've also seen this in studies with lab animals. Like sometimes they'll run experiments, and I remember reading about this experiment where they couldn't understand why one group of animals was completely thriving and another group wasn't. And what they realized is that the animals that were in the middle rows that were really easily reachable by the volunteers were loving on them and handling them. And the animals that were up higher that they couldn't reach weren't getting as much love, so they weren't thriving. So it's just so powerful. So as stalkers, as people that are on a path of transformation, we want to cultivate love, and how we can cultivate that love is to keep connecting to something larger than ourselves, to connect with the earth, the wind, the trees, the sky, the Mother Earth, to bring our gratitude, our offerings, to create ritual, to create ceremony, to do offerings, to become more conscious in our relationship with the earth. And then to listen to the guidance that comes. To know that we're part of a much bigger web of life that's always talking to us. And that there's this larger intent that's moving through everything that we can reconnect with, and that will guide us in such beautiful ways. So I want to open up this webcast for any questions, comments, shares. And you're welcome to tell me about your experience over the last 3 weeks around the teachings, or just any shares you have around the stories from this evening. I know it takes a while from when I ask the question to when you get the broadcast and you can then share. So we'll just hang out together for a minute. And as we're waiting for whoever shares first, just take a moment to open to how can you connect more with the earth? How can you come into a more gracious, harmonious, respectful relationship with the earth? What are some of the things that you can do? And you can make them little things. One of the things that I used to do when I was living in California, I had a commute down a road called Lucas Valley Road, which is this incredibly windy road to my office. And every day when I drove, we'd drive to the top of this hill, and there's this huge rock on the right-hand side, which I totally loved, and then I'd drive back down. So every time I came to that rock, I would send it love. So twice a day, I would pass this rock, and I would just say, I love you, you're a fabulous rock, you're so cool, and I just send it love. And about a month in, I had a rough day. And I remember coming up to my rock, and the rock blasted love to me. And I was like, wow, here I've been feeding love into this rock for months, a month or months, I can't remember what it was. And I can also open to receive back from this rock. And so I continued to feed it, but I also knew that I could open and receive at any time that I needed to. So that was a really fun relationship I had with this rock. And we can always find ways to connect with a tree, with a rock, with a space. And there's great gifts in that. Will, I love to play the flute in nature. Oh, that's perfect, because I'm sure that nature just is just drinking up that love and that beauty that you create with your flute. That's great. Good, dear ones. Janet, I have a best friend who is a tree, and yet she gets a drink of water first. Sweet. I love it. Wonderful. So remember to keep feeding yourselves, to keep feeding nature, and to open up to possibilities of creating new relationships to support you on your journey of transformation. To open your heart more to all of life. And to notice, where is there heavy energy? What can you do to clear and clean that heavy energy? And that's really a daily practice. And something that we can do as stalkers is that before you go to bed, is to check and to ask yourself, did I pick up any heavy energy throughout the day? This is especially true if you're someone who's in a leadership position or a healing position, that it's really easy to take on other people's energy or even the energy of an organization when things get intense. And so remember, clear the heavy energy, consciously let it go, ask the earth to take it. You can use any of the elements. You can imagine water cleaning it away, fire burning it, connecting to earth to release it into the earth, the wind to come and cleanse. But then in order for us to stay on track so that we can listen and be present, we want to release the heavy energy every day. Carrie, I love to lie in the grass in the yard and walk barefooted. Beautiful. Yeah, barefoot is great. I did that in Colombia my last couple of days. I went and walked around the garden there, and it was so helpful to help me stay centered in the midst of a lot of people and teachings. So remember to clear your field, release the heavy energy, create a ceremony ritual for yourself to do that regularly. And know that you have all of my love. Thanks again for joining in, and big kisses to you. Have a great evening, and I look forward to connecting with you very soon. Bye-bye. Good night.